This is my landlord's car, and it's been like this for 2 years. And today, we're making it start. With this Subaru STI being ready for scraps, I decided to try and bring it back to life. First, we pulled the turbo, which was well destroyed. Then we removed the engine. Both heads were dismantled, the pistons were cleaned, and we reassembled it, all while having no idea of what we're doing. Some poor moves were made. So now, the engine's installed. Let's see if we built it right. This is everything that we need to start rebuilding the engine. All of this has most every single connection that we need to hook up the fuel, the coolant, the oil, the air, just about everything. We are missing a few different things, so we are gonna need to go to Subaru to get some clamps and to get a few extra hoses, but this should be everything that we need to get it onto the car. We've got to tighten down those bolts that are holding the engine and the tranny together. So we're gonna tighten those down, and we're gonna start building. With the engine block back in the engine bay, we can finally start rebuilding. First things first are these new O-rings for this coolant bypass section. This connects into the hoses on the back right here, and these go in and blow hot air into the heater. We made a little bit of a mistake when we were disassembling the engine. If anything could come apart, we pulled it apart. That's a problem with this fuel rail and the wiring harness. This is supposed to stay connected to the intake manifold as you see it is right now. So we have to piece this together, and now we'll have to fight with the wiring harness later on. We're gonna bolt it down to the block. And now we're trying to figure out where the air inline goes. This is also supposed to stay connected to the intake manifold. Again, when disassembling, if a bolt could come out, we removed it. And if you know what you're doing, you're not supposed to do that.
I do know what you're doing.
You think I know what I'm doing?
Yes,
I don't! Case in point, throughout these last few episodes, we are no mechanics. We have no idea what we're doing. We're just a bunch of hobbyists trying to make a dream and a Subaru start. Okay, so the wiring harness is going in. We've got a broken plastic clip right here, and I knew that this connected to it. I didn't know how. These two connect to the intake manifold at these bolts right here, and that gives a perfect point for the ground up there, and then everything else will slot into place, and we'll show you how right now. For it being a Subaru, the engine bay is designed quite well. We're going to weave the wiring harness under the fuel lines, we're going to get it bolted to the intake manifold, and then everything just magically lines up exactly how it should. These are gonna go right to these big, huge connectors right here. This ground is just gonna come up here. We're actually gonna weave that under that, just like this. That's on the floor. I hope it's on the floor. Did that go on the floor? I don't think it's on the floor. And that just goes right in here, just like that. But this connects right in there. This connects right in there, and you can just see that just everything is just lining up and clicking exactly where it should, like very easily. With no experience, this is going surprisingly smooth. We're going to weave the wiring harness under the intake manifold and the fuel rail, get the throttle body installed with a new gasket. We're gonna hook up the coolant lines, bolt everything into place, and now for the big boy. Oh yeah, it's the turbo!
Thank you for choosing Grim Speed. Okay. It's literally getting pretty serious. Oh yeah. That is a hefty girl. That's all the install kit.
Like the gaskets and all that stuff, right?
Yes, sir. Gasket and hoses.
Oh, dude, it comes with new banjo bolts, too. Oh, it comes with new... Ooh!
It comes with a whole new kit.
So now that means that we gotta take out that.
This one right here?
Yeah, we're gonna have to take out that.
Well, we're gonna have to figure that out, because that's a lot bigger.
We'll figure it out.
It's a bendy one.
Yeah.
God.
Well, that makes me wonder what that one is, then. bendy one. Well, whatever it is, we'll figure it out. After adoring the turbo for a little bit too long, we decided to finish getting back to work. Dax finished putting together the driver's side of the car with the fuse box and the washer. Then we got in the AC compressor. While test fitting a handful of different things, we accidentally broke the coolant reservoir. There's supposed to be a cap right here. With most everything installed, now we can fit in the harmonic balancer. This one had to slot into a specific position, get pushed in, tighten down, then we torque it to a staggering 135 foot-pounds.
Yeah, baby!
The exhaust system is next on our list. The car has to come up, and we're putting on the headers. I didn't have a very good grasp on it, so Dax took it and did it in a jiffy. He's like a superhero. After getting that installed, we can do the up pipe which connects to the turbo. There's this bracket that has a mounting right here that is impossible to get to. With that all installed, we then took to the turbo and got her prepped for installation. Now what we have to do is we have to put in this. The part that I dropped on me in episode 1. We're gonna get this back in, and then we're going to start throwing in the rest of the mounting brackets. And then once those are in, we're gonna get the turbo in, the intercooler, and then it's just bits and bobs here and there to reinstall. Here we go! There's about 100 good ways to do this.
That's not one of them.
And I picked the only bad way.
I think so.
Okay. So that's in place. Holy piss. Just bringing me back PTSD. Oh, hey, look, that's not that bad. Okay, so with our new Grimspeed turbo, we're looking at the instructions, and you know how I literally just installed the downpipe, the catalytic converter, and the rest of the exhaust? It has to come back out.
Here she is. This is the Pride and Joy, the Grimspeed turbo. Really, really good looking turbo. We need to drop the oil pickup down into that line, right down there, and then line up this to the charging side of the turbo, and then just mount everything up. Should be a fairly easy process. We got a whole bunch of new bolts and stuff, or nuts and bolts, I guess, both, to put it all together. But yeah, it should be smooth sailing from here on forward. Turbo on first, and then the downpipe back on. That has to be first, which we learned the hard way. That's definitely not lined up.
Well, here we go. The turbo was pretty easy to slot into place. It went right into the oil pickup tube, but the problem was getting the compressor side into the air inlet. The turbo compressor side was far bigger than the stock turbo, so the rubber shroud didn't really want to go over. Here you could see it is pushing as far back on that silicone as possible before it reaches the hard plastic. It's not 100% of the way on, it's holding in its place. We're definitely going to have to replace this with a silicone one. It was installing all of the rest of the nuts and the bolts, torquing them to the proper spec that Grimspeed set, and buttoning up a few final things. I'm buzzing right now. So we've got our Mishimoto hoses. These are all going to be installed onto the engine. We've got our Grimspeed air oil separator. This is what Dax originally had on the engine. We are still missing a few brackets right here. We're missing a few connections down here, but those are going to go up to the intercooler right here.
God, I don't look as good on camera as I thought. So what I'm going to do, because Jakey is at school right now, Dax is going to change it. So the wiring harness is on top. So Jake has less to worry about when he comes in. It's kind of a nasty bugger to try to get it. It's just really tight under there. It's not supposed to. We figured when we were putting the turbo on that it's supposed to go on top because it gives the intake a little bit more wiggle. So, but I'm gonna do my very best to get it running so that when Jake comes back, he has another little time-lapse video of me working on this thing. So more incoming, but we'll see. I figure he wants some footage, so we're piecing everything back together. I did get the wiring harness over the intake manifold, so that's a win. That's a bonus. The next part that we do have to install is the condenser Is that what it's called? Not condenser.
I think it's the
evap solenoid, evap system, whatever.
It's got like 5 different names.
Yeah. These hoses, this one snapped when I was trying to install it. So these hoses are garbage. They're so old. They're from 2005. They're definitely not, you know, clicking back onto everything the way that it should. That being said, we went to O'Reilly and I got some new vacuum hose for it. Same thickness, same bar that it needs to run effectively, but they're new, so they're bendy and they actually work. We need to measure these out and replace all the ones that are old and cracking and busted. Once we do that, everything is just install. So we're going to throw the evap system in. The new power steering pump is up here. And we also got some new airline for the little stuff for the turbo. The turbo has a couple of solenoids that we still need to connect, this being one of them. That's the easy part. The harder part is connecting this solenoid to the intake right here. I feel sick.
And we're not just starting it yet.
No, but it's one more step.
We have the coolant reservoir coming in. Once we get that in, we need to bleed the clutch because right now our clutch, if you push it in, it just goes dunk and it just stays there. So we have an analog clutch. Analog? No, we have a binary clutch. So it's either on or off. And then, yeah.
Oh, I'm going to throw up.
Thankfully, in this process, there were no bodily fluids that were lost. We did a rough measurement of the hose, gave them a quick cut the old ones to remove them, and connected the sensor to the air intake how it goes. Now, it's just plugging everything in and putting the hoses in the right connections. That's one evap installed. Now we can get the power steering in. Problem is, the evap has to come out for the power steering to go back in. So we had to pull it out, reinstall it, then it was placing the power steering lines where they go. Dax is connecting those little tubes to the solenoids of the turbo. They get zip tied down and they come to this T-joint, which plugs in and goes to a little sensor on the side of the car. The sensor has 2 connection points. One goes to the turbo, the other connects right here to the beginning of the inlet manifold. On goes the downpipe. All of our fluids are accounted for, including transmission fluid, ATF for our power steering, our coolant, our oil, and our brake fluid for the clutch and brakes. The connections from the rocker cover to the intercooler were some oil lines. Those came in, so we got them installed. Now we're replacing the old coolant lines with the new Mishimoto coolant lines. Our new coolant reservoir came, we got that installed, started buttoning everything together. The cage for the air intake was installed, and while I was zip tying everything and buttoning up the last few connections, Dax started to fill the car with fluid. First with transmission, then with the coolant. Now here's the top mount intercooler, or the TMIC, and with this in, it is now looking like an authentic Subaru engine. This has been 2 years in the making. This is the first time the car has been outside of the garage with the engine hopefully working. This connection needs to be unplugged. That's the crank position sensor. With that unplugged, the engine should crank over, but it shouldn't start. We have our fluids for what we need to top off, and with that battery in, we're gonna see if O'Reilly was right.
There's a light on the dash, and the security light's flashing, which is a good sign.
Okay, first crank over since the rebuild, go. We noticed a lot of buildup on the battery terminals, so we uninstalled it and cleaned it off, hoping that would fix it. Ready? Here, we are only wanting the car to crank, because what this is going to do is this is going to start pushing the coolant around, the oil around, and building pressure in the system. Yes! Okay.
It's cranking.
It's cranking. Okay?
That's it.
That's it. Okay? It's not starting, but it's cranking. And that's good. And so far, we're not hearing any massive, loud cranks, clashes, or thuds. Are you? Or clicks, right? We're not hearing any of that. I mean, Is it sounding a little rough? Yes, but it has 200,000 miles on it, plus it's not starting and it's not running at full idle. We're gonna do a second cycle, then we're gonna top off the oil and some other fluids. We're running it for 15 seconds, 5 times, and then we're gonna go for a start. With the second cycle sounding good and hearing nothing bad, Dax topped off the oil, I topped off the coolant. Priming number 3.
Ready?
Yep. Wait, 15.
Prime 3 was good.
Okay, set for crank 4. Go on crank 4.
And crank 4
Okay,
sounded good.
topping fluid.
2 years in the works. Comes down to this.
We now have the crank position sensor plugged in, so next time when Dax turns the key, it's not just going to spin the engine, it's going to start the engine. At least that's the hope. So, it's showtime. Ready on you. There's smoke. There was a little bit of smoke coming out.
Probably just steam, buddy.
It's just smoking because of the power steering on the engine block on the exhaust. Okay. She's loud.
Want to
She's
hear it?
even live.
Want to hear it?
Does it drive?
It's loud.
Does it drive?
I don't know yet.
Okay, here we go. Ready?
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 Yeah, that's the power steering.
That doesn't sound right.
So we've got a few problems. The engine, as you already know, it sounds a little rough. It's not the turbo, we know that. It sounds like it's coming from the very middle, which is not ideal. We've got a handful of leaks, which is not the best. This is all power steering fluid. Like I showed you, we've got a bad leak right here, right in the line. We've also got some coolant, and it looks like there's also some oil. This is also coolant, but the oil is mixing with the power steering. We need to figure out what those are and where they're coming from, but what we're gonna do now is we're going to put the car in reverse, we're gonna back it out of the driveway, and then we're just gonna put it into first gear, and we're gonna bring it back in. And hopefully, we don't have big problems. She in reverse? Nice. Okay, put her in first gear and pull her in.
There's no engine codes, which is a good thing. It's so loud. I kind of want to take it on a cruise because that clutch is tight. That
If you
clutch
want to
is
take
really
it on a
tight.
cruise, we can, but you are dripping fluids bad.
It's okay. We'll take it down that way, flip around, and come back. What do you say?
If you want to do that, we
Let's
can
do
do
it.
that.
Get in.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, this is sketchy.
Oh, that turbo is so big.
You can hear a thumping here. And we're hoping it's just the axle.
She's loud. She's so loud.
By the time we hit this first corner, the power steering was already gone. So I was starting to fear how much oil and coolant we had lost alongside it. But we had been fighting for this for 2 years, and now we had it. It's actually driving. For now.